The moment I knew I had to leave came at my nephew's fourth birthday party. It was a Saturday afternoon in June, sunny and warm, the kind of day that exists in memory as perfect. My sister had decorated her backyard with superhero banners and balloons. There were maybe 15 kids running around, their voices high and joyful, parents clustered in groups with plastic cups of wine and beer. And there was Tyler, my nephew, the birthday boy, in a Spider-Man costume that was slightly too big, the mask pushed up on his head, chocolate cake smeared on his face. I spent 2 hours at that party, took 47 photos, posted 12 of them to Instagram with captions about family and love and precious moments, got 326 likes, and when I got home and sat on my couch scrolling through the images, cropped and filtered and perfectly composed, I realized something that made my chest tight with panic. I couldn't remember the sound of Tyler's laugh. I'd been there. I'd been physically present. But I'd experienced the entire party through my phone screen, watching moments through a lens instead of living them, thinking about angles and lighting and captions instead of actually playing with my nephew on his birthday. I documented everything and experienced nothing, and that's when I understood I had a problem. My name is Jenna Walsh. I'm 36 now, but I was 34 when I deleted everything. I worked as a marketing director for a tech startup in Seattle, the kind of job where social media presence wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. You were supposed to be building your personal brand, networking online, creating content, being visible. I had 14,000 Instagram followers, 8,000 on Twitter, 2,200 LinkedIn connections. People called me an influencer, though I hated that word. I preferred content creator or digital strategist. I'd been on social media since college. Facebook launched when I was a sophomore, and I was one of the early adopters. Then came Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok. Each new platform another space to occupy, another audience to cultivate, another version of myself to perform. By my 30s, I was spending somewhere between 4 and 6 hours daily on social media. Posting, commenting, liking, sharing, scrolling. It was work and entertainment and social life all blurred into one endless digital stream. I'd built a careful online presence. My Instagram was aesthetic. Muted colors, carefully composed shots of my apartment, my coffee, my travels, my perfectly plated meals. My Twitter was clever and politically engaged, but not too controversial. My LinkedIn was professional and aspirational. Each platform got a slightly different version of me, all of them curated, none of them quite real. And I was good at it. Brands would send me products to review. I got invited to events because of my follower count. My opinions about marketing trends got quoted in industry publications. My boss loved that I was building the company's visibility through my personal accounts. I'd made being online into a second career, one that felt important and validated and seen. But after Tyler's birthday party, I started noticing things I'd been ignoring. How I'd order food at restaurants and photograph it before tasting it, arranging the composition while my dinner got cold. How I'd go to concerts and watch most of the show through my phone screen, recording videos I'd never watch again. How I'd have experiences, hiking, traveling, seeing friends. And my first thought was always, how will this look online? Not, how does this feel? I was living for documentation, not experience. Living for validation, not satisfaction. And the person I was online, witty, accomplished, effortlessly stylish, always having meaningful experiences, was so far from the person I actually was that I'd started to forget which one was real. The anxiety had been building for months, maybe years. The constant pressure to post, to stay relevant, to maintain the persona I'd created, the way my mood would spike or crash based on engagement metrics, the comparison trap, scrolling through other people's highlight reels and feeling inadequate, even though I knew intellectually that everyone was performing the same curated version of reality. The phantom vibrations where I'd feel my phone buzz even when it hadn't. The way I'd check notifications compulsively. First thing in the morning, last thing at night, dozens of times throughout the day. I'd become addicted to the dopamine hit of likes and comments and shares, and I didn't know who I was without that constant stream of external validation. 2 days after Tyler's birthday, I had a panic attack. I was at my apartment trying to choose between 2 photos to post, both from a hike I'd taken that weekend. Both beautiful, both edited to perfection, and I couldn't decide. Sat there for 20 minutes, paralyzed by the choice, anxiety building in my chest. Which one would get more engagement? Which one better represented my brand? Which one made me look more interesting, more authentic, more worth following? The questions spiraled. My breathing got shallow. My heart raced. I felt dizzy and hot and trapped, and I couldn't understand why I was having a panic attack over choosing a photo. It was absurd. It was stupid. It was just Instagram. But it wasn't just Instagram. It was everything. It was the weight of maintaining this digital existence that had become more real than my actual life. It was the exhaustion of being on all the time, performing for an audience that never stopped watching. It was the realization that I'd spent a decade building an identity online and I had no idea who I was offline. I closed Instagram, sat on my couch, stared at the wall, and I thought, what would happen if I just stopped? The idea was terrifying. My social media presence was tied to my career, my friendships, my sense of self. I'd built a network of thousands of people who knew me, or knew the version of me I showed them. I'd cultivated relationships with brands, with colleagues, with friends I'd made online who I'd never met in person. I'd created something that felt important, that felt like an achievement. But it was also killing me, slowly, in ways I'd been too busy posting to notice. I spent 3 days researching, read articles about digital detoxes and social media addiction, watched documentaries about the attention economy and dopamine manipulation, read testimonials from people who'd quit social media, some of them euphoric about their freedom, others struggling with isolation and FOMO. The decision wasn't simple. Quitting wasn't just about deleting apps. It meant losing a significant part of my professional identity. It meant losing touch with hundreds of people I considered friends. It meant becoming invisible in a world where visibility equaled value. But I kept thinking about Tyler's laugh, about how I'd missed it because I'd been too busy documenting the moment to actually experience it. And I realized if I kept going like this, I'd wake up at 50 having documented a beautiful life I never actually lived. On July 7th, 2022, I made the decision. I'd delete everything. Not deactivate, delete. Permanent erasure. I'd disappear from the internet and figure out who I was in the silence. I started with Instagram, opened the app one last time, scrolled through my feed, 2,347 posts, 12 years of my life in carefully curated squares. There were photos from college, from my first apartment, from vacations and parties, and ordinary Tuesday afternoons that I'd made extraordinary through filtering and captioning. There were collaborations with brands, sponsored posts that had paid my rent, aesthetic shots that had gotten thousands of likes. It was a visual autobiography, and it was about to disappear. I went to settings, found delete account. The app asked if I was sure, asked me to select a reason. Something else, I clicked. Then it asked me to enter my password to confirm. My hand was shaking. This was over a decade of work, over a decade of identity. I could just deactivate instead, take a break, keep the archive, leave the door open. But I knew if I left the door open, I'd walk back through it. This had to be permanent, had to be burning the bridge so I couldn't retreat when it got hard. I typed my password, hit delete account, the app closed, and just like that, 14,000 followers, 12 years of posts, hundreds of comments and conversations, gone, disappeared into the digital void like they'd never existed. I felt sick, exhilarated, terrified, free. I deleted Twitter next. 8,000 followers, tens of thousands of tweets, clever observations and hot takes, and performative outrage. Gone. LinkedIn, 2,200 connections, professional networking, my carefully crafted career persona. Gone. Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, every platform, every account, every version of myself I'd created for public consumption. Deleted, erased, disappeared. The whole process took maybe 45 minutes. 45 minutes to eliminate my entire digital existence. When it was done, I sat on my couch with my phone in my hands and realized I didn't know what to do with it anymore. Social media had been my default activity. Bored? Scroll Instagram. Waiting for something? Check Twitter. Relaxing? Browse TikTok? My phone had been an extension of my body, and now it was just a device for calls and texts and the occasional email. The silence was deafening. I didn't post about what I was doing, didn't make a dramatic exit announcement, just disappeared. And over the next few days, I started getting texts. Friends asking if I was okay, if my accounts had been hacked, why I'd deleted everything. I responded to a few, taking a break from social media. Most people said something like, "Good for you, I could never," or "See you back soon," like it was a temporary rebellion, not a permanent departure. My boss called. Jenna, what's going on? Your LinkedIn is gone. Your Twitter's gone. Are you leaving the company? No, I just quit social media. Long pause. You work in marketing. Social media is part of your job. I know. I'm still doing the company accounts. Just not personal accounts anymore? Another pause. This is going to affect your professional brand, your networking, your visibility in the industry. I understand. I could hear the confusion in her voice. In 2022, in tech marketing, having no social media presence was like being a ghost. It meant you weren't serious, weren't engaged, weren't relevant. Okay, she said, finally. It's your choice. But I think you're making a mistake. Maybe I was, but I needed to find out. The first week was the hardest. My hands kept reaching for my phone, muscle memory looking for apps that weren't there anymore. I'd unlock the screen, stare at the home page, realize there was nothing to check, and lock it again, dozens of times a day. The phantom notifications continued. I'd feel the buzz, the dopamine anticipation, check my phone, and find nothing. I felt anxious, disconnected, like I was missing something important. FOMO was intense. What were people talking about? What trends was I missing? What was happening in my industry, in the world, in my friends' lives? Without social media, I was blind. Out of the loop, irrelevant, but I also felt something else. Space, mental space, time. I'd reclaimed 4 to 6 hours a day, and I didn't know what to do with it. The emptiness was uncomfortable. I'd gotten so used to constant stimulation, constant information, constant connection, that silence felt wrong. I started filling the silence intentionally, went for walks without my phone, which felt dangerous and vulnerable at first. What if I saw something beautiful? How would I capture it? Then I realized I'd just see it, experience it directly, let it exist without documentation. Started reading again, real books, not articles skimmed between meetings. I'd forgotten how it felt to sink into a story, to let hours pass without checking anything, to think deeply about ideas instead of consuming them in bite-sized pieces designed for sharing. Started cooking elaborate meals, not for content, but because I enjoyed it. The food looked beautiful sometimes, messy other times, and no one saw it but me. Ate it without photographing it, tasted it fully because I wasn't distracted by composition and lighting, called friends instead of commenting on their posts, actual phone calls, long conversations where we talked about real things instead of performing happiness for an audience. Some friends were enthusiastic. I'm so glad you called. We never actually talk anymore. Others were confused. Just text me, this is weird. I started noticing things I'd been too distracted to see. The way morning light came through my apartment windows, the sound of rain, the taste of coffee when I actually paid attention instead of scrolling through my phone while drinking it, small things. Present things. Things that existed only in the moment, that couldn't be captured or shared or validated by anyone else. But I also started noticing something darker. How many of my friendships had been based entirely on social media interaction? People I'd considered close friends, people I'd messaged with regularly, whose content I'd engaged with, who engaged with mine, completely disappeared when I left the platforms. No texts, no calls, no attempts to maintain the relationship outside of digital space. I'd had hundreds of friends online. I had maybe 15 who bothered to stay in touch when I became invisible. That hurt more than I'd expected. I'd built all these relationships, invested all this time and energy into connection, and most of it had been performative, shallow, based on consumption and validation rather than genuine care. My professional network collapsed too. Without LinkedIn, without Twitter, I became invisible in my industry, stopped getting invited to events, stopped being tagged in industry conversations. My boss's prediction was right. My visibility disappeared, and with it, opportunities. I was passed over for a promotion that year. The feedback was vague, but I knew. In a field where personal brand mattered, I had none. I'd made myself irrelevant by refusing to perform online. I had moments of regret, moments when I wanted desperately to check Instagram, to see what I was missing, to post something and feel that validation again. I'd even re-download the app sometimes, hover over the sign-up screen, then delete it again. The addiction didn't disappear immediately. The neural pathways were still there, still craving that dopamine hit. But something else was happening too. I was starting to remember who I was before social media, or maybe discovering who I could be without it. Opinions I held not because they'd get engagement, but because I actually believed them. activities I enjoyed not because they were shareable, but because they brought me genuine pleasure. A version of myself that existed without an audience, without performance, without constant evaluation. I took a pottery class, worked with clay every Tuesday evening for 3 months, made ugly bowls and lopsided vases, and eventually, a few pieces I was actually proud of. Never photographed them, never showed anyone except the other people in the class. The satisfaction came from making them, not from the recognition of having made them. I started volunteering at a community garden, spent Saturday mornings pulling weeds and planting vegetables alongside people who had no idea I'd once had 14,000 Instagram followers. They knew me as Jenna, who was good at tomatoes and terrible at remembering to water the herbs. That version of me, small, local, unremarkable, felt more real than the carefully curated influencer ever had. I dated someone I met at a coffee shop. We didn't match on an app. I didn't vet him through social media stalking. I just met him, liked him, went on dates with him. The relationship lasted 4 months and ended amicably, and the entire thing existed in real life with no digital archive. When it ended, there were no photos to delete, no relationship status to change, no performance of heartbreak for an audience. It just ended quietly between two people, and that felt right. My relationship with my sister improved dramatically. I started showing up to family events without my phone, actually played with Tyler and his little sister Emma, built blanket forts and played pretend and watched them learn to ride bikes. When Tyler turned 5, I spent the entire party present, chasing him around, helping him open presents, cutting cake, and I heard his laugh, memorized it, let it exist just for me. My sister noticed. "You're different," she said, one evening, while we were doing dishes after a family dinner. "More here." "I feel more here," I said. "Do you miss it? The Instagram thing?" I thought about it. Sometimes. I miss the validation, the feeling of being seen, but I don't miss who I was becoming. This feels better. Smaller, but better. She dried a plate, set it on the counter. "For what it's worth, we like you better this way, too. You used to come to things and I'd feel like you were broadcasting them instead of experiencing them. Now you're just here." That was maybe the best compliment I'd received in years. You're just here. The second year was easier. The compulsions faded. I stopped reaching for apps that weren't there. Stopped feeling like I was missing something important. Started understanding that most of what happened online wasn't actually important. It was just loud and constant and designed to feel urgent. I lost my job at the tech startup. The official reason was restructuring, but I suspect my lack of social media presence played a role. In marketing, invisibility is a liability. I found new work at a small nonprofit focused on environmental conservation. Lower pay, less prestige, but they didn't care about my follower count. They cared about actual work, writing grants, organizing events, building community partnerships, work that happened in the real world with tangible outcomes, not just engagement metrics. I moved out of Seattle, took a job with the nonprofit in Bellingham, a smaller city 2 hours north, lower cost of living, slower pace, easier to live a life that wasn't constantly plugged in. I found an apartment near the water, adopted a dog, started hiking regularly, built a life that was ordinary and quiet and mine. Some days I wonder what my old followers are doing, whether anyone noticed I was gone, whether my carefully curated content left any lasting impact or just disappeared into the endless scroll of everyone else's content. I wonder what version of me they remember, if they remember me at all. Mostly, I don't think about it. I've built a different life now. A smaller one in terms of reach, but a larger one in terms of depth. I have maybe 10 close friends who I see regularly, talk to frequently, who know the real me, not the performed version, but the actual person with flaws and boring days and ordinary struggles. I have work that feels meaningful. I have time to think, to read, to exist without documentation. I'm not completely off the grid. I still use email. I still have a phone, but I'm not performing my life for an audience anymore. And that absence of performance has let me actually live instead of just documenting living. Last month, I went on a trip to the San Juan Islands. Solo camping, 3 days, no service. I saw eagles and orcas and sunsets that took my breath away. Sat on rocky beaches and watched the water for hours. Felt completely present in a way I'd forgotten was possible. And the best part, the thing that made me understand how far I'd come, was that my first thought when I saw something beautiful wasn't, how will I capture this? It was just, "This is beautiful." Full stop. The experience was enough. The moment was complete without documentation or validation or sharing. I thought about photographing some of it, brought a camera, took a few shots for myself. But I didn't feel the compulsion to share them, to craft captions, to turn the experience into content. They're on my camera's memory card, and I look at them sometimes, and they remind me of how it felt to be there. That's enough. People ask me sometimes if I regret deleting everything, if I wish I'd kept the archive, the evidence of all those years online. And honestly, no, I don't regret it. The person I was online wasn't fully me. She was a performance, a construction, a version of myself designed for consumption, and I don't need to preserve that. What I have now is smaller, quieter, less impressive when described. I don't have thousands of followers or professional clout or a carefully curated personal brand. I have a job that pays the bills, a dog who's terrible at fetch, a handful of friends who know me deeply, a relationship with my family that's real instead of performed. I have time to think, space to exist, freedom from constant evaluation. I'm not saying everyone should quit social media. For some people, it's genuinely valuable, stays connected to distant family, builds community, creates opportunities. But for me, it had become toxic. It had replaced living with performing. It had convinced me that my value was measured in likes and follows and engagement metrics. And I needed to step away to remember that my life has value independent of anyone else's validation. The irony isn't lost on me that I spent years building an online presence, teaching people about digital marketing and engagement strategies, advocating for personal brand development, and I escaped all of it by doing the opposite, by making myself invisible, by refusing to participate in the attention economy, by choosing presence over performance. I'm 36 now, 2 years offline, and I can honestly say I've never been happier. Not Instagram happy, where everything's filtered and curated and performed. Actually happy, content, present, real. I heard Tyler laugh last week, a full belly laugh when I was pushing him on the swings, and I didn't think about capturing it. I just laughed with him, and the moment was complete, right there, between two people who were fully present. That's what I got back when I left social media. Not something new, but something I'd lost without realizing it. The ability to be present, to experience life directly instead of through a screen, to exist without an audience. And I wouldn't trade it for all the followers in the world. My name is Jenna Walsh. I used to have 14,000 Instagram followers. Now I have a dog, a garden plot, a handful of real friends, and the ability to experience a sunset without immediately thinking about how to caption it. I'm invisible online, and I've never felt more seen. If you've ever felt exhausted by the performance of social media, or if you've questioned whether your online life is replacing your real one, you're not alone. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose to be present instead of performing. Drop a comment if this resonated, though I realize the irony of saying that while you're on a platform. And if you want more stories about choosing depth over reach, real connection over performance, a like or subscribe would be appreciated. Thank you for reading, and for considering that maybe, sometimes, the most meaningful moments are the ones we don't share.